If you're thinking about upgrading your smartphone, you're in for a treat. Samsung has been at the forefront of innovation, offering some of the best smartphones on the market, but with so many options, it can be tough to pick the right one for you. That's why in today's video, we're breaking down the top 5 best Samsung phones available right now. Whether you're after cutting-edge features, a fantastic camera, or just great value for your money, there's a Samsung phone that fits the bill. For more amazing tech reviews and suggestions, please subscribe to our Grip Things channel. You can check pricing for any of these products in the description below. Let's jump right in and find the perfect match for you. Number 5. Samsung Galaxy S24. The Galaxy S24 is the pocket flagship many would have you believe died years ago. The S24 packs a 6.2-inch display into a frame that's only 2 mm taller than the Asus Zenfone 10, which settles for a 5.9-inch screen. That screen is backed up by flagship specs as well, although there are some caveats. The display is still 1080p, but it's more efficient now. It can adjust its refresh rate from 1 to 120 Hz versus the 48 to 120 Hz from last year. That means it'll sip power when sitting on the always-on display or when you're watching a 30 FPS video. The screen is brighter this year as well, reaching 2,600 nits, while the S23 maxed out at 1,750. It's a shame the S24 and S24 Plus are missing the anti-reflective glass we find on the S24 Ultra, but at least they're bright enough to be more than usable in even the harshest of sunlight. As with the S24 Plus, the cameras are good but not class-leading, which is a shame. Hopefully, after this many years with the same optics, the S25 will shake things up. Performance is good on the S24 thanks to the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, but international models use the Exynos 2400, which we haven't tested. The S24 didn't see any RAM or storage upgrades, sadly. It's only available with 8 GB of RAM, and the 128 GB still uses UFS 3.1, stepping up to UFS 4.0 on the 256 GB model. If you want more than 256 GB, you'll need an S24 Plus. Battery life is a pleasant surprise. The battery grows from 3,900 mAh to 4,000 mAh, which offers a meaningful uplift when combined with the more efficient display and processor. Sadly, charging is still limited to 25 watts. It's not intolerable with a battery this small, but it lags far behind what other OEMs are offering. Number 4. Samsung Galaxy A35. With Samsung neglecting to release the Galaxy A55 in the US, mid-range phone users are left with the A35 as an alternative. It's not really a huge blow, since the $400 mid-ranger sports powerful enough hardware to last through its 4 years of Android updates and 5 years of security patches with little issue. To be clear, it probably won't satisfy people long used to flagship phones, but it wasn't meant to. It offers plenty of screen space, decent performance, a shockingly good screen, and even respectably capable cameras. And while it does tend to get warm and even throttle due to overheating at times, it actually does so a little less than the A54. So credit to Samsung R&D for that. Samsung's image processing isn't perfect and the A35 lacks any kind of AI-like editing features, but the camera hardware does start off on the right foot. We didn't have much trouble getting quality shots in good lighting, but once things start to dim or even just get cloudy, it might take you an extra snap or two to get the results you want. That's not the end of the world, but a lot of us have been spoiled by the immaculate point and shoot capabilities of phones like the Pixel 8. So while it isn't particularly exciting, the A35 is clearly one of this year's best mid-range phones. It improves significantly on its A33 and A34 predecessors, and competes directly with last year's A54, but at a lower price. As long as you don't demand peak performance and AI mastery from your phone, it's a perfectly cromulent choice. Number 3. Samsung Galaxy A25 5G. Typically, spending $300 on a phone means you should prepare yourself for some pretty big sacrifices. But Samsung did a great job with the Galaxy A25 by cutting the corners it needed to keep the price low, but still delivering a competent device that should satisfy less picky consumers who don't want to shell out for an S-series. Its FHD Plus 120 Hz, 1000 nit OLED display is one especially satisfying feature, and you'll rarely find similarly priced phones that look as good. The cameras also perform great for the cost, with a good level of detail and capable image processing, although it does lack the AI tools its more costly relatives boast. With that said, you won't mistake this for an S-series like you might one of the upper-tier A-series Galaxies. In particular, it not only retains the somewhat invasive notch from phones of years past, but also a frustratingly off-center bezel and screen arrangement. Considering how the overwhelming majority of smartphone involves looking at the screen, it's disappointing Samsung couldn't line up the panel and body better. but as long as you're not super picky, you'll probably get used to it. The rest of the specs and experience aren't terribly surprising. The Exynos 1280 SoC won't impress anybody coming from a Snapdragon-powered Samsung, and it plus the 6 GB of RAM limit multitasking and resource-intensive app use considerably. But for a pure smartphone experience, it's hard to top the A25's value for the money. Number 2. Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra. The Galaxy S24 Ultra is the best Ultra Samsung has made yet. There are upgrades here, but all foibles have been carried over with the now aging design. The cameras are fantastic for taking photos of scenic landscapes and static objects, but they still struggle with movement. This has been a problem for half a decade now, and there's no excuse for it. Thankfully, the rest of the phone is mostly positive. The new 50MP 5x telephoto is better than the old 10x ever was. The problem with previous phones was the lack of quality between 3x and 10x, which this fixes, still taking better photos than the old 10x lens through to 30x. When the S20 and S21 Ultra came out, they started with 12 GB of RAM. The S22 and S23 Ultra lowered that to 8 GB and made you pay for increased storage to get the extra RAM. Samsung has reversed that decision now, and all S24 Ultra models have 12 GB of RAM. The phone also follows in the S23 Ultra's footsteps by using the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 worldwide, unlike the smaller S24 and S24 Plus that use the Exynos 2400 internationally. Battery life is slightly better than last year thanks to improved efficiency from the display and chipset, but it's not groundbreaking as the battery size is the same 5000 mAh. The display is flat this year, a welcome change for those of us who like glass screen protectors and use the S Pen extensively. Its new Gorilla Armor glass has a new party trick. It's 75% less reflective than conventional tempered glass. There's a notable difference. The display maxes out at 2600 nits, but in direct sunlight, I can easily turn the brightness down to 75% thanks to the lack of reflections, something I'd never do on anything else. Number 1. Samsung Galaxy S24 Plus. The Galaxy S24 Plus gets the biggest upgrades this year. The display is 6.7 inches, despite being mostly the same size as last year, and the resolution has been bumped up to 1440p, although you have to enable that in settings. Other improvements will make a noticeable difference to battery life and performance, with the RAM being increased to 12 GB instead of 8 GB, and the battery is now 4900 mAh, only 100 mAh smaller than the S24 Ultra. Our review of the S24 Plus calls it the one to buy, and it's easy to see why. Those on-paper specs translate to a great experience in the real world. One UI 6.1 makes some welcome changes to Samsung's software skin, from tiny quality of life improvements to new ways to use Google Search. Speaking of software, Samsung has decided to match Google, promising 7 years of OS upgrades and security patches for the S24 series. That means this phone will be updated through to 2031 when Android 21 is released. The cameras largely mirror last year with the same 50MP primary camera, 10MP 3x telephoto, and 12MP ultra-wide. These cameras aren't bad by any means, but they haven't changed in several generations and are starting to fall behind phones from other brands. Battery life takes a big leap thanks to the larger cell. It lasts almost as long as the S24 Ultra, so unless you spend all day gaming on 5G with the brightness maxed out, you won't kill it before bedtime. If you do want to do that though, the phone will be more than capable. The new 1440p display reaches a ridiculous 2600 nits, and it can now vary its refresh rate from 1 to 120 Hz, so it's more efficient than before. The Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 is also shaping to be an excellent chip, and combined with 12 GB of RAM and at least 250 GB of UFS 4.0 storage, this phone is lightning fast. We should note, however, that outside of the US, the S24 Plus uses an Exynos 2400. We haven't had any hands-on with that chip, so we can't comment on how it performs. The battery can be recharged at 15 watts wirelessly and 45 watts over USB-C, so long as you have a compatible PPS brick. This concludes our ranking of the best Samsung phones. If you find this video to be useful, kindly press the thumbs up button. Which one will you pick? Fill out the space below with your thoughts. For your time, I'm grateful. Please like and subscribe to our channel if you found this video to be helpful in any way so you won't miss any upcoming stuff. Whoever got this far, when the next video comes out, I want to see you there.